Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark, and we are in Mark chapter 1. We're starting verse 36 this lesson. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16, Thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Now, as we saw last lesson in verse 35, Jesus gets up early in the morning. I guess he went to sleep, but he says he rises up early, a great while before day, and he went out and he departed into a solitary place, and there he prayed. So Jesus rises up a long time before the sun comes up, and he wants to be with the Father. He doesn't want to be with his disciples or any other followers, but he wants to be with his Father alone. He wants to be away from the world and just spend time with God, with his Father alone, praying and talking to him. And so now in verse 36, where we begin this lesson, it says, And Simon and they that were with him followed after him. Now, this Greek word, followed after, is katadioko. Now, you would think that, when it says here, Simon and they that were with him followed after him, it was almost like when Jesus left Simon's house to go and pray, that they were at a distance behind following him. But that's not the idea at all. All right, that's not what happened. Katadioko, the first part is kata, and it means down. And kata intensifies the rest of this Greek word. And dioko means to pursue or to follow after something. So this Greek word means to hunt something or to chase something. So they were hunting for Jesus. Why? Because they didn't know where he went. He didn't tell anybody he was leaving. And so here's Peter and a number of other people. They are hunting for Jesus, all right? So the picture here that we have is that Jesus leaves Simon's house early in the morning to pray, and the other people, they realize that Jesus is gone, and now they start this massive search throughout Capernaum and throughout the area of Galilee in order to find him. Now, in verse 37 it says, And when they had found him, they said unto him, All men seek for thee. Now, this Greek word for seek is in the present tense. So it wasn't just Simon and a few others who were seeking for Jesus, but it was many people from Capernaum were at this present time, they were hunting him. They were looking for Jesus. It implies that Peter wanted Jesus to return to Capernaum to continue his ministry of preaching and healing. Because there were many people there in Capernaum who still were willing and they wanted to hear the word of God, and maybe there was a few people that couldn't make it and they were sick and they wanted Jesus to touch them. We don't know. But this idea seems that Peter kind of wanted Jesus to return to Capernaum and to continue his ministry there. Jesus had brought hope and excitement to the Jewish people of the long time awaited Messiah. Remember, for many, many years now, the Jewish nation had been looking for this Messiah, this one who would be sent from God, who would come and establish his kingship over the nation of Israel. He would take them away from any kind of Gentile suppression or Gentile rulership over them, and he would establish his kingdom through the Jewish nation here on earth. And Jesus had brought a tremendous excitement that he was the Messiah, that people were thinking he was the Messiah, and therefore people were very, very excited about what Jesus was doing. Their mundane world of laws and sacrifices now gave way to one who spoke with authority and healed the sick and raised the dead. They were tired of their life and what the world had to offer for them. Yes, they sought Jesus. They sought for Jesus, but did they seek him as their Messiah or as a temporal provision for their needs? In John 6, verse 66, many of these very people who are seeking for Jesus will walk away from him because of his hard sayings. Right? John 6, 66 says they turned and they walked away. Why? Because they said, you know what? This Jesus guy here, he's telling us we need to eat his flesh and drink his blood. And this is, we don't understand this. This is a little bit too deep for us. We're gonna turn our backs and go on home. We're not sure what he's talking. We're not sure about him right now. If he's really the Messiah or whatever. There are many today who seek for Jesus, but do they seek him for who he is, or do they seek him for what they want him to be in their own concept? Are people seeking Jesus today for who he is, or are they seeking him for their concept of what they want Jesus to be? A healer. They want him to be a provider. They want him to be a miracle worker, right? Jesus said to the people when after he fed the 4,000 or the 5,000, he goes across the Sea of Galilee to the other side. They follow him. They follow him around. If you've never been to Israel, the Sea of Galilee is, you could probably, I was there many years ago, back in 1981. It was September, October of 1981. And I had the opportunity to go there. Dr. Jack Vinippy, he was giving a tour of Israel, and I was great loved Dr. Vinippy's ministry and listened to him on the radio all the time. And when he made that announcement of going to Israel, he wanted to take a tour group there. I was all on it. I had to go. But so we got to the Sea of Galilee, and I was a little surprised that it's not as big as you may think. It's a small sea. You can actually, literally, you could walk around the whole Sea of Galilee basically in a day. And it's not as big as you may think. So when the people, when it says that the people on the other side of the Sea of Galilee came to where Jesus was on the opposite side, they probably walked around. It took them a few hours, but they walked around probably the northern side because the southern side you have to cross the Jordan River, but probably around the northern side of the Sea of Galilee. And they followed him around. And so they came to him, and Jesus said, you know, you're here because I fed you with that food, with the bread, right? You're here because I fed you and you want more food. You're not here because of who I am, because you want me. You're here because you want another meal. You want more bread for you want me to be your food provider. And so when people say they're seeking for Jesus, are they seeking him for who he is? Or are they seeking him for what they want him to be in their life? They want to control him. They want Jesus to be their provider, their supplier, right? And things. So if we have a desire to seek after God, is it because he first sought us and put that desire in us? right? If any of us have a desire to seek after God, it's because God put that desire in us. God put it in us to seek after him. Jesus said, no man can come unto me unless the Father draw him, right? So if a person has that desire to seek the Lord and to find and to draw close to the Lord, maybe they start reading his word, maybe they begin to pray, and that's because God moved in that person's heart first. Just because all men sought him didn't mean that it was God's will for Jesus to go back to them. Popularity and crowds do not equal God's will. Jesus knew what was God's will at that time, and he stayed true to it. If you know what God's will is for you, don't be sidetracked by people's needs and desires and the possibility of big opportunities. Sometimes we, as Christians, our sinful, lustful flesh can see opportunities in the future, or opportunities like, we're over here in this, come over here to this town, there's a great opportunity. Well, that may be the will of God, it may not. But opportunities don't determine what God's will is. There's needs in every city. There's needs and opportunities in every city, in every town. But it doesn't mean that that's God's will. Jesus, there was great opportunity in Capernaum. Jesus could have gone back there and ministered and healed more and taught more and done a great work there. But that wasn't God's will for his life. His life was his will was to stay true to God's will. Verses 38 and 39 says, and he said unto them, let us go into the next towns, that I may preach there also. For therefore came I forth. And he preached in their synagogues throughout all Galilee, and cast out devils. Now, it says here in verse 38, that he said unto them, let us go into the next towns that I may preach there. For therefore came I forth. Now, you may say, well, maybe that saying when Jesus said, for therefore came I forth, does that mean that's the reason why he came to earth? Was to go, or is that, some commentators seem to think that that phrase when he says, for therefore came I forth, means that that's the reason why I left your house, Simon, and came out to pray to God, to my Father early this morning, was because I'm leaving and I'm going to these villages. All right. So for therefore came I forth can mean that that's why he left early in the morning to pray and to get ready for this new ministry, speaking and preaching in the synagogues throughout Galilee. All right. So Jesus preached in the synagogues throughout all Galilee, and he cast out, and he was still casting out more devils. Whew, there must have been a lot of demon-possessed people back then, huh? I mean, really. I mean, it's like everywhere he went, he was casting out devils. There must have been a lot of demon-possessed people at that time. Anyways, we're going to start verse 40 next lesson, and it's from verses 40 to 45 deal with Jesus cleansing a leper. All right, but until then, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.